like something I truly believe is it's impossible at this point to try to shield our children from anything. Like they have access to phones, to internet. They can get any information anytime. We could maybe restrict them from having a phone, but as soon as they get to school, their friends have them. They're gonna, so we can't shield them from the world. What we have to do is we have to teach them how to navigate the world. And so we have to have that reference point first before then we can hand that down to our children. And I think starting in the mirror, what do we believe? Why do we believe it? What is it rooted in? And like you say, this postmodernism, this objective truth, it's your truth, it's this, everybody's got their own truth. We know that's garbage. We know that's garbage as Christian women. We know there is one truth, and that is God. That is the Bible. That is the truth, and it's with a capital T. But for people who maybe think they're Christians, they think they've got a biblical worldview, are there things there that maybe are missing that are causing a lot of this confusion, where we're not handing, a solid truth down to our kids because we're not even sure of what it is ourselves?
I actually went to a conference this weekend that really explored these topics from a cultural the cultural topics of today from a biblical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that came out of the conference is, while Pew polling says that 65% of Americans identify as Christians, according to Barna surveys, only 4% of Americans hold a true biblical worldview.
4%.
So if we look at that,
4%.
Yes, so 4%. So with those statistics, there's probably a large portion of even your audience who, while they may be self-professing Christians, there are aspects of our worldview which are so heavily influenced by the media, by school, by what we're watching on television, by what we're
Yeah.
seeing on social media and the culture,
Yeah.
that we don't even recognize that we are being subconsciously indoctrinated away from what God really says.
We can sit in church all day long. It doesn't make us a Christian, right? It's a personal relationship with Jesus. And Jesus says, and our idea, when people say, well, Jesus is love, the New Testament's all about love. Well, Jesus defines love very explicitly in the New Testament. And he says, if you love me, you'll obey me. You'll obey my laws. Obedience is a form of that love. And so if we don't understand what the rules are, then we can, again, we can spray paint anything we want and think that it's, that we're in line, that we're aligned with him, or bring in, a little bit of that worldview, trickling in that worldview, mixing that with our spiritual view and thinking we're okay.
It goes back to that moral relativism.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a lot of what we're seeing in the church, especially. You see this moral relativism of picking and choosing what you believe to be moral, and not truly holding it up to what does God say.
Yes.
And like you were saying, in the New Testament, but also in the Old Testament. But in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians, the part of 1 Corinthians 13:6 that a lot of people don't really like to talk about is, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth.
Yes.
So love does not delight in evil. So it is important for us as Christians to be the arbiters of truth. And there is one truth.
Part of loving each other is also nudging and guiding each other. I think of it kind of like a highway, right? With the white lines down the road, or down each side of the road, right? And when one of our friends or family members gets a little too close to getting outside of that line, there's a ditch there. You sort of want to nudge them back to the middle and say, okay, we need to look at this. So with the Holy Spirit will do the convicting. Like, that's not up to us, but God says it is up to us to bring correction, and so if we're not making judgment calls, if we're not able to have that discernment to judge righteously, how are we going to bring that correction in a healthy and spiritual way? So it's ridiculous. It's ludicrous to think that we should go through this life just affirming everybody, affirming everything in order to show love. That is not the definition of love, not by the Bible standard. It's not.
No,
It's a
not
very, very different definition. Yeah.
exactly.